For this section, we want to reduce to lowest terms, so you want to simplify. So if we have 16a squared b cubed divided by 2ab squared, then to simplify this, divide your numbers just like normal. So 16 divided by 2 is 8. And if you want to mark through, that's fine. So I'm going to use a different color to do that just so you can see it better. A squared divided by a, if you've got, you subtract your exponents when you divide. So this has an exponent of 1. So 2 minus 1 is 1. So that's a to the first, or just a. And then you have b cubed divided by b squared. So again, just like when you multiply, you add exponents. When you divide, you subtract. So 3 minus 2 is also 1, or just b. So this would simplify into 8ab, and you would be finished. For the next one here, again, you're going to do each piece and simplify what you can. So we can start with x plus 4 divided by x plus 4, because those are going to cancel. And for all of these as well, you can assume that the denominator is not 0. So, you know, like here, you couldn't have a as 0 or b as 0 because you can't divide by 0. But for this section, unless it tells you specifically to find the domain, you're just going to assume that it's fine, as long as you're just going to assume the denominator is not 0. So you're going to use whatever numbers to make the denominator not 0. So you don't have to write the domain or anything, you just can simplify. And then we have 6 divided by negative 2. So 6 divided by negative 2 is a negative 3. You have x squared divided by x, so that's x to the first. So again, subtract 2 minus 1 is 1, or just x. Then you have y to the 5th divided by y, so that's y to the first. So subtract 5 minus 1 is 4. The x minus 1 you can't do anything with. There's no other x minus 1, so we're just going to leave it there. So we would have negative 3, x to the first, so just x, y to the 4th, times x minus 1 is what we have left. So a lot of people do color code these, just so then you can, once you're done crossing everything out, you can write down what's left. For 8.94, you have x squared plus 9x plus 14 divided by x squared plus 7x. So this one's not in factored form. So the ones before, these were monomials, so you didn't have to factor. This one had factors already done for you. So if it's not in a factored form, you want to factor the numerator and the denominator and see if anything cancels. So to factor the numerator here, we would have x is x times x. Factors of 14 that add to 9 are 7 and 2, so we have x plus 7 times x plus 2. For our denominator, you can factor out a greatest common factor of x, and you're left with x plus 7. So if you need to factor, just factor and then see if anything cancels. So we have x plus 7 divided by x plus 7. The x plus 2 divided by x doesn't really reduce anymore, so you just put x plus 2 divided by x as your answer. These you should leave as one fraction. Some people would choose to say, if you do x divided by x, that's 1 plus 2 divided by x is 2 over x, which is an equivalent answer, but for our class, you can just leave it as one fraction, so you don't have to do this. For the next one, you have a to the 6th minus a to the 4th over a cubed. So the easiest thing to do here is to divide each piece, just like you do fractions. You can separate it because they're all a's. Or you could factor out the GCF of a to the 4th in the numerator. Either way you do it, it's not going to matter. I was just talking about factoring, so let me factor it first. So you've got a to the 4th because we got to the 6th and to the 4th, so the greatest common factor is a to the 4th. So if I have 6 and I've taken away 4 of them, I've got a squared left minus 1 over a cubed. So now the a cubed, a to the 4th divided by a cubed, 4 minus 3 is 1. So I would have a times a squared minus 1, which you could distribute the a back in and get a cubed minus a, would be a simplified form. You could do the difference of squares and write it as a times a minus 1 times a plus 1 if you wanted. It's up to you how you would write that. On the notes I did this answer, but on the notes, instead of factoring, I only factored it here because I was talking about factoring this, because when you're dividing by a monomial, you could just take each piece and divide it by that monomial and see what's left. So you don't necessarily have to factor. You could just split it. A to the 6th divided by a cubed. 6 minus 3 is 3. A to the 4th divided by a cubed. 4 minus 3 is 1. So you would also be left with a cubed minus a. So you come up with the same answer either way. Like I said, when you're dividing by the monomial, some people think it's quicker to do it this way. Just take each piece and divide it by that monomial instead of factoring.